Hello, welcome back to Mountain Jim Card Collectibles. Hope your week is going awesome so far. So, today I am going over some news or a news article from Sports Collectors Daily. And it has to deal with some individuals filing a class action lawsuit against Fanatics for creating a monopoly. And I honestly like this lawsuit. I know there's been other lawsuits that have, come up in the past, but this is really a David versus Goliath moment. Obviously the people filing the class action suit would be David, and Fanatics and our good old buddy Michael Rubin would be Goliath, with all their money, all their wealth, white parties, Fanatics exclusives, $1 million cards, whatever. And so when I look at this lawsuit, is it going to do anything? That's just it. We all know that we live in a country that tends to favor the wealthiest, wealthy corporations, and just wealthy people in general. I know that. I've lived a life. I'm just a lower middle class person. I've never been married. Believe me. A lot of lower middle class men like myself, we are who we are. We're not getting the best of the best. I'll just say that much. So anyway. So this just came out yesterday, July 16th, 2025. It's written by Rich Muller. It's from Sports Collectors Daily. I'll just kind of hit some of the basic stuff here, I won't read the whole thing verbatim. But right here, attorneys for a Phoenix area collector have filed a federal class action lawsuit against Fanatics, challenging the company's takeover of sports cards for Major League Baseball, the NBA, and NFL. Yes, I wish that we were kind of back into the junk wax era so I could go and purchase licensed Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA cards, whatever, of different brands. I'm just burnt out of Topps and their artists and their notion that they're the greatest thing to hit sports cards in my lifetime. And honestly, they're not. Anyway, the suit was filed by the law firm DeCello Levin on behalf of Philip Jones. In 2021, after buying, let's see here, highlight this for you. In 2021, after buying Topps and acquiring the MLB card license, Fanatics announced 20-year deals with the NBA and NFL and its players' unions, in which the company would hold all three licenses. And to me, that's just atrocious. 20-year deals. The NBA license is scheduled to change hands in October, and the NFL in the first quarter of 2026. So it's just, I've had enough of Topps. And 20 more years? I don't know. It's just like, I feel like I'm on an interstate and I am looking for an exit. Is there a new hobby I can afford? Not up here in Montana. Up here in Montana, they've made everything so expensive. Fishing, hunting. Honestly, sports cards were one of my last hobbies I could afford. And, that got taken away from me by a bunch of wealthy people too. Anyway. The complaint alleges that Fanatics, together with the leagues, the respective players' associations, and one-team partners, a licensor of athletes' names, images, and likenesses, orchestrate a conspiracy in the market for newly issued licensed professional sports trading cards. Well, the thing is, though, is to prove a conspiracy, good luck. First off, we're dealing with all sorts of conspiracies, the JFK conspiracy, we have the Epstein files that, people are demanding. I would like to see the Epstein files too. They're probably in the process of going through the shredder right now. But, that's just the way wealthy people have it in the U.S., it's just, they tend to do whatever they want to do. The law lets them get away with it. Is this lawsuit really going to go anywhere? And let's see what it says right here. Fanatics' conduct has fundamentally altered the competitive landscape of the trading card industry. Yes, it has. locking out rivals and leaving collectors and fans with no real alternatives. That is true. I mean, I went over a review for Leaf Pearl. I mean, there are unlicensed opportunities, but even the unlicensed opportunities are just going to be too expensive for this hobby anymore. And like it says here, Panini and Fanatics have been battling over similar issues in federal court over the last couple of years. Which, that's just two giants battling each other. But the thing about this is, like it says here, unlike earlier cases brought by Panini framed largely as competition disputes, the Jones case is centered around consumer injury. Yeah, I mean, when you dig into what that term price gouging is, it's hard not to admit that isn't what's going on with a lot of these companies. I just feel that, if maybe they're doing this wrong, maybe the lawsuit should be centered around price gouging. And sure, it's hard to not see, the monopolistic issues as well. I mean, it, I know it, I feel it. To an extent, sports cards are becoming like Montana State. As well, just move on up to Montana State and feel like I feel, which is, well, like in the 80s and 90s, growing up around my dad, we could always afford to do stuff. We could always afford to go fishing, hunting, take trips. I could afford, I was playing all these sports leagues, football, baseball. But what's happened is you've had a lot of wealthy people move into Montana and bring their politics and bring their ideals. And so people like me who grew up in Montana, I mean, I even had, my great-great-grandpa fight in these military battles in Montana. My family's been here since the late 1850s. But that doesn't really matter. All that matters is bending the knee to the wealthiest people in Montana, and they get to call the shots. So, like a lot of my fishing spots, a lot of areas where I used to go, they're fenced off now with barbed wire, big massive fences like it's the Berlin Wall. Or else a lot of these other places where I used to go that were just, natural land, they've developed them and, you just can't go there anymore. And so really it kind of feels like when you live in Montana, like you live in a very high-end, beautiful prison. You can drive the roads and look at the mountains from the roads, from the highways, but that's about it. If you want to start getting into those mountains, good luck. I mean, it's tough to get into the public land. A lot of it's fenced off from private. And so I've lived a lifetime of having, all of my interests and hobbies priced out, and really just made for, who's going fishing, who's going hunting in Montana? The wealthy people are. That's how they set it up. I mean, that's how they view it. It's just for wealthy people. And so, I mean, look at, the Big Sky Club, all that stuff down in Big Sky. I just, it's hard to deny it that if you want to enjoy Montana, you really have to be a millionaire, Unfortunately, I feel like sports cards are the same way. I mean, it's just, you can just look at my hobbies. I've just been booted out. I mean, what is my hobby? I mean, I guess coming on YouTube every now and then and, griping about my issues. But we all can't be millionaires in this world. I mean, if we all were, it would be a much different world. I would still be getting priced out by billionaires. I'd be getting priced out by trillionaires. You know what I mean? It's always been this way for people like me, and believe me, low middle class people, you're not getting a lot of women wanting to get married to me. I've never been married. And so I can relate to what this guy is hammering at, because, I never thought that, just look at our president. I mean, my whole life, that man has been a billionaire, Donald Trump. He's always gotten whatever he's wanted, and he acts like he's the biggest victim in the world, and it's not just him. It's a lot of people. Montana's full of people like Donald Trump. I mean, they have everything. They're like millionaires, but if you ask them, they're the biggest victims in the world. That's just the way it is. But in reality, what this lawsuit hits on is a lot of truth. I'll just hit these last two graphs here. In a statement published by Sportico, a Fanatics sports person or spokesperson called the suit nothing more than a rehash of basic allegations. Fanatics called the suit fundamentally flawed in numerous respects, and that the company has brought much needed innovation and excitement that has benefited participants. Yeah, but who are those participants? It's like the Montana crowd. It's just a bunch of billionaires and millionaires, man. And if you're low end like me, you try and step it up. It's taking food, away from your mouth, unfortunately. Jones and his attorneys are seeking class certification, injunctive relief to break up the exclusivity agreements, treble damages, disgorgement of monopoly profits, and restitution for affected card purchasers. And this 20-year window, of always, open up your mouth and get shoved more Michael Rubin and his good old, BS. I don't know what to say. But right there, brought much needed innovation and excitement that has benefited participants. Well, I took the time to pull up those people. Here we are, Fanatics Live. Yes, I mean, here's your innovation. Here's your. Let's look at all the innovation besides all the dollars flowing into, Michael Rubin. All right. Well, we have these big, massive hits from Topps Dynasty. We have a Babe Ruth that no one can afford. We have, of course, big superstars that top the list, Emma Roberts. We have the rarest of the rare, at Fanatics Live. This is innovation. Shohei Ohtani and Alex Rodriguez, one of one dual autograph card, that you gotta be like a millionaire to get, just like everything else in Montana. Yeah, we get the Livy Dunn reunites with Paul Skeens, and it'll be debut patch. I believe she may marry the Paul Skeens, and it'll be debut day patch over Paul Skeens one of these days. Why not, man? I mean, Topps Fanatics is brought more value to the card than the man himself. The best pulls from Fanatic Live Studio. I mean, is this their argument for innovation? Because I'm just going to say it. These are still modern cards. We're still living in the era from 1952. The first design of modern cards, the Mickey Mantle rookie card, Cy Berger designed the very first designed modern cards. But, the great thing back then is, they kept it affordable. It wasn't like now you're all living in Montana, if you know what I mean. You're all getting pushed out of the hobby, just like I've been getting pushed out of hobbies here in Montana my whole life, But I would argue against the innovation. Really, the only thing that Topps Fanatics has brought to the hobby is exclusivity. It's like the Big Sky Club, It's you gotta be a millionaire, or the Yellowstone Club down in Big Sky, I should say. You gotta be a millionaire, and eventually that thing, crashed and burned because they went out of business. And that's just what's going to happen with all the exclusivity in the hobby. Is I see it more and more. Just like you have to be like from a rich family, dynasty, whatever, to join up in this hobby and really get what you need to get, the good stuff. Because if you're not that guy, you may as well just pack it up and go home. So, will this lawsuit go anywhere? Well, we know how money works in the United States. we know that Goliath always beats David in the U.S. That's the way that everybody likes it set up, It likely won't go anywhere. I'm sure with all of Michael Rubin's dollars, they'll get what they want. They're getting everything that they want. 20-year deal with the leagues and pricing a bunch of people out like me. But, I've lived a full life of it. I feel bad for the people who are like half my age, or less than half my age, because it's like you're getting priced out at a very young age. At least I could live, I'm 50 years old. I had a really awesome life pre 9/11. Post 9/11, the U.S. has really turned into a nightmare. A nightmare that I would like to escape. A dystopian nightmare, And I've even, considered moving to a different country that would feel more pre 9/11. With everything that's going on in the U.S. currently, it's hard to deny, the concentration camp headlines. I've talked to my mom about that, and I never thought that I would witness that in my lifetime on this soil. But then you see everything else that's going on. You see, these big giants like, Topps Fanatics just becoming titans, because they're hoarding all the money for themselves because they had all the money to begin with, So it is what it is. Anyway, if you have any different opinions on this subject, leave some comments. Thank you to all my subscribers. Thank you to all of my viewers. And if you haven't subscribed as a viewer, just click the subscribe button. It's 100% free. I know nobody wants to do it. But hey, if you could do it, I'd appreciate it. Anyway, if you have a great day, I'm out of here. Bye.